It pays to be a winner, and that's what you and all of Chiefs Kingdom, along with this team, is today, as we are back with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com, going to fill us in on everything that we missed late night from this championship game. And where does this team stand right now, today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. It is the day after a championship game. Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest is here with us. We are not live today like we were last night. Thank you for being with us then. I hope that you were there, and make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell there. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. This episode and all of us, the official sports book of the NFL. Make every moment more. Do that at FanDuel.com/lockedon. We're going to go over Matt's perspective there with the team, in the press box, on the field, etc. A lot of small details change based on your perspective. We're going to start with that here in a second. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, home of the Athletic Matrix, and NFL 33, where you can find all of our draft work and RGR football.
And I'm Chris Clark. Thank you all for listening. We have really appreciated it. It's been a great season. Going to have a couple more fun shows to talk about the Super Bowl. And then we will be moving on to talk about the offseason, because that is the way the NFL works. And we have no rest for the weary. But let's talk about the Super Bowl with Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest. Matt, I'm sure it was a lot of fun to be there in the press box, see this game, and what stood out to you in this game?
What didn't stand out? I mean, this was, absolutely one of the best football games I've just seen, period. And when you put in what the stakes were, I mean, I think it's got to be one of the top 3, top 5, Super Bowl games of all time. I mean, that's just how entertaining and exciting it was. I mean, it goes down to the very, very end. Both teams had a chance to win this game. Both offenses played extremely well for a game that a lot was going to be, you thought, predicated on defense. I mean, it was the Chiefs defense, if anything, that made the biggest plays in the game that the Eagles didn't, which was not what the conventional wisdom was going to be coming into this one. But I think the better team won. I mean, I think that the Chiefs were the better team throughout the season. I think the AFC was the stronger conference throughout the season. Didn't exactly play out maybe the way that I thought this game would play, and maybe a lot of others, but it was entertaining. And I think you get to see both these teams close to their best. Maybe it wasn't their best on defensively, but offensively, I don't think that either one of these teams could have played any better. Really quick,
I just want to say, I would almost disagree with you just a little bit on the best team won. I do think that or at least from perspective of everybody else, the Eagles roster was the better roster going into this game.
Boo,
that was the no. That was the thought process. That was what we heard from everybody, that the Eagles had the better roster going into this game. The Chiefs really took heart with that, especially on the offensive line, and made it their rallying cry. And look what they were able to get accomplished.
Yeah, and I said it last night, and I will say it again today. The Eagles were the better team for probably 48 minutes of that game, but they weren't in the last 12. The Chiefs were the better team, and like I said, I mean, I think that over the bulk of the entire season, I think that the Chiefs were the better team. In that sense, I do think that the better team won, and I don't care what anybody does say through 53. I think these teams were closer in that regard than anybody else thinks that they are. And guess what? One matters a lot more than 2-53. And
yes, it does.
One mattered a lot last night, because the quarterback for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, he balled. He delivered one of the best games he's ever going to play. Patrick Mahomes did not. I mean, it was a good game from Mahomes. It was a gritty performance from Mahomes. Wasn't the best game he's ever going to play. Chiefs won because that's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he makes the plays. He made the plays in the last 12 minutes. He made the plays when they needed to. That, to me, I mean, like I said, I think the complete team won because I think the team was better coached, better quarterback, better overall play. And the Chiefs did that.
I think you bring up a couple of good points there, and we'll talk about Jalen Hurts tomorrow and where we have to now consider Patrick versus the rest of his quarterback elite company. And if Jalen's in it, we'll do that tomorrow. But for this night, it was a tale of two halves for me. Not just for Patrick, certainly with the injury there at the end of the first. I would be lying if I was not concerned just about whether they were going to be able to get that under control. There's always a couple of things that you can do in terms of pain management. I'm certain that was. Maybe eventually we hear that, maybe we don't. But even in that point, you lose the ability to get ankle flexion. You lose the ability to be able to drive off of it. Even that kind of pain breaks through pain management very often. And I thought that was really what this game came down to, especially the last scramble where he seemed to get loose. And you could tell, I thought he was running on one heel most of that scramble, yet got, 26 yards on the day. And that comes back to the main word that you said, Matt, grit. And I think the whole team follows from him. I don't care who you are. I know Chris Jones was fired up. I know he had an effect as well. But at the end of the day, it's about that guy. And number one is number one on that roster. Not only could they not do it without him, but honestly, if he didn't have that extra gear, I don't know if they could have pulled off this win. Do you?
No, I mean, that was obviously one of the most critical plays in the game. And, look at me. I'm gonna use a marathon reference here, and that's the last thing I should do. Maybe I could put it saying for a marathon for most people, a 100-yard sprint for me. But that's what the NFL season is. And last night was the last leg. And what you saw from Mahomes was everything hurts at the end of a marathon. The lungs, I'm told, are burning. The muscles are burning. Your jelly. There's just not much left. But it's the true champions who managed to dig out that last bit of energy and are able to close it at the end. And that was a great example. I am sure that Mahomes was hurting, although having seen him today at the MVP press conference, and I know I've seen the pictures from Disneyland and whatnot in Disney World, but wherever he ended up, I know he ended up with Minnie Mouse, and that's what Minnie wants. But I didn't see the guy that was in a lot of pain today. I mean, he's probably still running on a little bit of adrenaline. That's the one thing about the Super Bowl. I don't know if there's anybody on the Chiefs that has slept in the last 24 hours. I know I haven't showered in the last 30, so got that going for me. That's the Super Bowl for you in a nutshell right there.
And I'm glad you actually bring up the energy, because I think that's so key and something that may have been overlooked, because one of the things that was coming out right before the Super Bowl started was that Andy Reid was telling his players, do what you can to sit down, do what you can to conserve energy. This is a very long game. This is a very long process. Halftime is going to be much longer than what you're used to. Conserve as much energy as you can, and I think that really played out in the third and fourth quarters.
Well, and to Ryan's observation about Mahomes and the ankle too, I think all of that played into their favor, because once Mahomes went to the bench there at the end of the first half, and you heard Chad Henne was warming up, and this sounded like a familiar story, but I was watching Mahomes the entire time. He goes to the bench and sits down. And Rick Burkholder was there looking at the right leg. I mean, we were presuming at that point that once again it's the knee, and that there's nothing, or the ankle rather, and that nothing new has popped up. But Matt Nagy was right next to him the entire time too. And it was almost like two conversations were going on. One was with Rick about the ankle, the other was with Nagy about what that just happened on that drive, what's going to happen going forward. And then once Rick departs the picture, Andy comes over, Reed comes over, and they're going over the tablet and looking at film, and it's just normal. There was no indication at that point to me that Mahomes was going back for X-rays or any examination, was going back to the locker room early. I saw no indication at that point of a guy who was coming out of the game. The only thing that suggested that was Henne warming up. But it didn't seem at that point there was any concern whatsoever that Mahomes was going to leave. And then you get the extended halftime, and whether this was true, I don't know. But Chris Jones was like, "Hey, it was long enough that you could have some chicken fingers and you could meditate and whatever, and get some rest, whatever you needed to do." I would like to meditate with some chicken fingers myself, but. It helped. And you come out in the second half, and the Chiefs had that fantastic opening drive. And it was really, to me, that was where the momentum of the game started changing.
Yeah, it just really flipped the script. The thing that I thought was fascinating about it is you've never seen Mahomes scream like he did on the sideline. I've never seen him show that much pain and agony. That's what had me worried going back into the second half of the game.
Yeah, and maybe it was a little scream therapy. I don't know. I mean, I have seen and heard him because we could kind of hear and see a little bit of the scream in Denver. So I think that one probably topped it for me. But you're right, on the sideline, on the field's a different matter. It's a gray area. But yeah, no, that was different. But there's part of me that just does wonder if it was a little bit of Mahomes hamming it up a little bit, or if it was 100% pain, or whether that was 75% pain and 25% he knows the cameras are on him.
So much more to talk about, and I really want to get into Mahomes' game because you look at how he played in the second half, and there's a lot to talk about there. Almost played a perfect second half going into that game, and like I said, a lot to digest in that. But before we get there, I do want to tell you about our friends over at BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. When you're at your best, you can do great things, but sometimes life gets you bogged down and you may feel overwhelmed or like you're not showing up in the way that you want to. Working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you because when you feel empowered, you're more prepared to take everything life throws at you. I can tell you from experience, BetterHelp has helped me get through a couple of things over the past couple of years, and I'm very thankful for all that they've been able to help me with. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. If you live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon, and that is BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked-on. All right. Before the break, I talked about what I wanted to talk about. I said what I wanted to talk about in the second segment, and that's really Patrick Mahomes' play in the second half. 13-14 for 93 yards, I believe, and 2 touchdowns, plus the scrambles. His incomplete pass was a throwaway. That's the only play that you could say was a bad play, and it wasn't a bad play, but that's the only thing that you could say, he missed in the second half, and it was a throwaway. And if I remember correctly, that specific throwaway was a trick play with the tackle eligible that I think was trying to go to Andrew Wiley in the end zone that they had covered.
Yeah, it was, and I gave Wiley a hard time after the game for not getting the catch, because I'm like, you got to get open on that play. You got to make that play for all the big guys out there. And yeah, he said he was getting some texts from friends and family that said he was open. Mahomes should have thrown it in there, and Wiley was like, I was not open. So much as he wanted the ball, he was glad it didn't come his way, because he's like, that was not going to work. Yeah, it was once again, I mean, a very unusual Mahomes-like performance in that this game was not dependent upon him completely. He absolutely made the big plays. He made great decisions throughout the game. One thing we haven't even started to talk about, and it's probably worth its own entire show or conversation. This game plan and game sheet from Andy Reid probably just belongs in the Hall of Fame, because what they put together, some of the things that they picked up. Yeah, they stole some things from what Jacksonville did against Philadelphia back in, I think, week 4. But, the Chiefs picked it all up. I mean, they absolutely picked apart what was generally considered to be one of the best defenses and certainly the best front four in the league. And they absolutely, Mahomes picked it apart, but he didn't do it alone. I mean, they ran the ball effectively, had over 150 yards rushing. That helped make things a little bit easier for Mahomes, especially with the ankle, everything that they were able to do. And the bottom line was that they didn't have to put up huge numbers, because to a degree, I mean, the Eagles controlled the ball and the clock for a lot of the game. But what did the Chiefs do? They just went out there and they got the ball and they went up and down the field when they had it. Averaging about 7 yards a play. Once again, just an absolutely ridiculously brutal, efficient performance from this team.
You're muted.
And that's what it comes down to. It's the efficiency of what you're doing. It's not just the fact that you're moving the ball around. It's that you're completing an entire arc. It's like a movie. It's a story arc. There's a first act, a middle act, and a third act. I thought the third act was the culmination of keeping things that we always talk about out of the game plan. Keep it out of sight. To score 2 touchdowns on the same play, or at least a very close mirror of the play. I love the fact they run a whip route behind the line of scrimmage for Tony, something that he had a snap in the first half. You kept him hidden.
One snap in the first half.
You kept him hidden. You kept the play hidden. You kept the concept hidden. And there's so much in the girth of the Andy Reid playbook. Just having the wherewithal to say, you know what? They'll never expect me to do it again because I have too many plays that I have to get through every script. We're just going to go back to the well. I thought, like you said, not only is it one of the best play calls, but it's one of the biggest tendency breaker play call sheets that we've seen from Andy Reid in his career. Certainly his tenure in Kansas City.
Yeah, and to that point specifically, Mahomes had said that was not the situation for which they had game planned that throw to Tony. The way they made it sound was probably something much more in midfield. Maybe it was going to be for a third and short, fourth and short situation. It wasn't necessarily a goal line in a red zone play, but they adapted it, and obviously it worked in the situation anyway. And honestly, I mean, as well as they and especially the decision on that route and that play alone. Mahomes told us on Monday at his MVP press conference that on Sky Moore's touchdown, Sky Moore lined up on the wrong side of the field. He was supposed to be on the right side. And that's where Mahomes looked for him first. And then he realized that he wasn't there, turns around, and Sky is just absolutely wide open over on the left side. Even when the Chiefs weren't doing things right, things were coming their way. But and those routes and those the way that they were picking up on how the Eagles were playing and that man, and they were, how they were switching off the guys who were in motion, absolutely just use that against them.
And really quick, I think what's fascinating about the Tony play, you're talking about maybe that's something that they were going to be looking at using in midfield. I will tell you this right now. If they call that at midfield, I'm not so sure that Tony doesn't score a touchdown regardless. There was nobody within 10 yards of him.
Yeah.
He's fast enough. I think he probably takes it to the house. But to see Sky Moore be able to do what he did, I know that had to have been a special moment for him. One of the things that I talked about last night, and I couldn't find this last night, but I did find it after we got done recording, was Dan Orlovsky pointed this out, so I want to give him credit for it. Kansas City scored 31 points in 24 minutes. That's phenomenal efficiency. And to your point, Ryan, that you talked about earlier, with being able to run that same play twice so quickly, I think part of what actually worked in their favor was the defense didn't have enough time to really try to figure out how do we deal with this if they do it again. I mean, it was 3 minutes after they did it the first time? Because wasn't that like the TD, and then they do another one right after that 3 minutes later with Tony return that punt?
Well, now that we know the inside story too, it's hard to prepare for it when the offense didn't even run it right. So
well, that's true. Good
point. When the offense doesn't even know what the play is, it makes it even harder. But to me, I just go back to offensively in the second half, just how perfect the team was. I mean, you mentioned, Chris, one incompletion, and it is the throwaway. Also, no sacks, no penalties, no turnovers. I mean, virtually no mistakes in the second half, and that's about as perfect as I think a team can play. I mean, and then I was curious just at the end of the game, even though they had run the football, you get to that final drive, you need to really stretch out the next 5 minutes of the game, and the only way you can do that is run the football. And I was curious that now, when the Eagles know that the Chiefs have to run the ball and they're going to stack the box a little bit, will they still be able to run it effectively? And they did. That was huge. And certainly it goes back to execution and game planning.
Well, but they also broke the mold of what they normally do. And Ryan, this is to your guy, Mike Burton. Burton, when he goes in there on those third and shorts, it's usually a turnaround, hand the ball off right in the middle of the field. And if you go back and rewatch that specific play, you can see the Eagles linebackers are looking to go right in the middle of the field. The defense is set up to figure that that's where the ball's going. And Sky Moore takes out a linebacker on top of taking out his corner that he was blocking and gets a 2-for-1 there. Now, don't get me wrong, the lineman came through and helped as well, but it broke Pacheco so far outside that if Gardner Johnson doesn't catch him, that's an easy touchdown for him because there was nobody else around. But it was a fantastic play design, and they played off of what they normally do and went against their normal tendencies, and that's what won them that game.
Mike Burton is a team guy, and he spent the year setting up a play in which Jerick McKinnon can sit down at the 1 yard line. So, hey.
And I mean, this goes back to a couple of points that I've made, one over the past and one last week. First of all, I mean, Andy Reid sees a season like a symphony. I don't know if he actually sees it that way, but that's how I compare it. Because Andy Reid will absolutely show you something in week 1, just so that 19 weeks later, he can throw something else at you and a variation of it on there. And 2, last week, Andy told us a couple of things. One, I mean, he said certainly that, he thought this game was going to be physical and decided in the trenches. He was right. And 2, he tells you the way that you win games like this is by keeping the other team off balance and surprising them. And that's what you got to do. And the one thing that the Chiefs and Andy Reid are so good at when you give them an extra week, and it's not just a grind of the season, is figuring out their own tendencies and doing that self-scouting. And like Chris said, when you're able to do that and you got the time to say, okay, wait a minute, how are the Eagles going to attack us? And then you start looking at it and you can switch things up. I mean, that's once again how you keep teams off balance. And like I said, I mean, all the things that the Chiefs were doing, they kept the Eagles confused, the defense confused last night. And what was the effect of that? The front 4 and the front 7 was confused. So they weren't playing downhill and going after the quarterback as fast as they normally would.
Yeah, you have to have it. You always have to have something new to accomplish that. And we have something new from our friends over at Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat and you're done with Super Bowl food, because let's face it, Monday's always tough, you can get everything that you need without the fat and all the calories. The holidays have gotten us through to this point, but Built Bars are actually healthy and they actually taste good. I think you have all kinds of options that can find the flavor for you, whether it's the churro, the peanut butter brownie, the coconut almond, and they're all covered in real chocolate, and that's 100% real. You can get something healthy that gets you through the day for 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. It's the protein that actually sustains you. And you don't have to order online any longer. You can go to Walmart, you can get to Sam's Club, you can get them either there. You can even pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or even coconut puffs just to give them a shot. Make sure that you do, because they are the best no matter what. If you're close to a Sam's Club, grab that 13-bar box and you'll get a little bit of everything. So check them out at built.com or at your Sam's Club or Walmart. Now, what I needed to do that was new was trust the system. This was, I think, and I said it last night, Matt, I want to think that you would agree with me, but it is the system, not just Andy's play call, not just Mahomes pushing through pain, not just Juju taking up slack because he was able to. It was an organizational win from the top down, from Clark, Mark, Brett, everyone down to the guys that are maintaining the field back in Kansas City that didn't even have to do anything for this game. At that point, you have to start looking at the future, right? And uniquely, is there anything that you take away from this game and the players' reaction after it that sets them up for, hey, we won it this way this year, we can do something different again next year?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it does. I mean, it's certainly last night in that locker room and after the game, there was a lot of joy, a lot of celebration. But there was some, I think, both reflection and looking forward. There were some guys talking about the fact that, hey, they don't know what their future is. They don't have a contract for next season. They don't know if they'll be back here. Universally, everybody would like to, but they know the situation. They know it's a business, and that may not happen. There were some guys too that certainly felt like last night was a vindication and a redemption, especially the guys that were on that team in Tampa and for Super Bowl 55, and Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, Andrew Wiley. I mean, to a T. I mean, a lot of them talked about the fact that game hurt. Just the way that they lost and what happened, and they felt like that they missed an opportunity. And this was, redeeming that. I mean, this was important for them, and this is something that can carry forward. I mean, this team, there was a bravado after Super Bowl 54 about this being a dynasty, and Chris Jones talking about this, and you had Tyreek talking about it. And I think we're talking about, was it going to be 5, 6, or 7 Super Bowls and everything? That was hype. I mean, that was, there was not necessarily, I don't think, a lot of belief behind it, because they'd only been there once. At that point, you got 2 AFC championship games and 1 Super Bowl. You can't have that much belief. But now you got 5 AFC title games You got 3 Super Bowls, 2 wins, 2 others in which you are literally maybe 1 play away from 2 more Super Bowls. This time there wasn't that bravado. There wasn't that false confidence in people's voices when they were talking about this being a dynasty. There was truth. There was belief. They believe they are a dynasty. And that's honestly the first steps toward taking the next step and building a dynasty. I mean, that's the attitude and the swagger that the Patriots had all those years. It wasn't, we're bragging about the fact that, hey, we're this good. No, you go out there and you back it up. And probably no better indication than that. Joe Tooney, once again, my Terminator, who has been sent from the future to protect quarterbacks and block for the run. He was sitting in front of his locker on his phone the entire time. And people came up to him and would congratulate him, and he'd smile and shake their hands and everything like that, and then just go back. Nobody's been in these Super Bowls more for the Chiefs than Joe, because he's been doing it in the New England way too. And for him, last night was another day at the office. And that's how it is when you want to build a dynasty. It's just going to be another day at the office. Although one was champagne.
Well, okay.
Yeah. they were partying in the locker room, and we want to talk about that. We will talk to you. We will have another show for you tomorrow talking about the after the game and everything that went on with that. But I have to ask you a quick question really quick, because one of the things that we said that was in the first segment is that Kansas City had the number 1 player in the NFL at the position, one of one, the best player. I don't disagree with any of that. I think that's absolutely straight on. But the thing that really stood out to me last night is your boy Nick Bolton, the quarterback of the defense. And I say it that way specifically because Spagnuolo came out after the game and called him that in some interviews. But he played such a pivotal role in how they played in that game, the attitude that he had, and almost had 2 touchdowns, and probably would have won MVP if that second one would have counted.
Yeah, I don't know if you can really, properly calculate how important Nick Bolton has been to this team. When you've got a guy in that position that's the leader, who's, setting the defense and everything, and is also playing at that kind of a level, it gives you a great deal of confidence. And it gives you not only the confidence to trust that guy, but to follow that guy. I think it's big to have somebody like that. I mean, and this is no knock on Anthony Hitchens, who I think was a great teammate and somebody that the players really, rallied around and respected. But there was a reason why, Tyrann Mathieu had kind of a bigger, outsized role. And it wasn't just Matthew's leadership. It was maybe that they needed it a little bit. With Bolton, he's got control, he's got command, and to see that in a guy in year 2 is amazing. And you're also, I think you're just seeing an ascending player. He's got things to work on. He knows it. And I think you can continue to see him getting better and better. So, hey, I think the best football for Nick Bolton is still ahead of him. And that's what I think is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Really quick before we let you go, and like I said, we'll be back talking to Matt tomorrow to talk about the after the game scenarios. But I want to ask you, Ryan and I both gave 3 players yesterday 3 game balls. The one caveat is you can't give it to Patrick Mahomes, because as we talked on the show,
I like that.
And quite honestly, I think you could probably just figure that from here on out, we're going to almost say that you can't give it to Patrick Mahomes, just because you could probably give it to him every single game. So let's see, who are your 3 players that really stood out to you last night that you think deserved a game ball, Matt?
Well, first I have to start with my guy Nick. I mean, I'm going to give it to him anyway. I mean, that even if he didn't get the second touchdown, the rest of the game was very solid. I thought he only had maybe 1 bad snap that he'd like back. That was, on the kind of the fake on the conversion, and the keeper for Jalen Hurts. He was the spy there and kind of bit on the fake a little bit. If he doesn't do that, Chiefs get a stop, and that game's probably a whole lot easier. But that was literally the one blemish to me on Bolton's record. The rest of it, I thought he had played a very solid game. It's 2 plays, but they were huge plays. I got to go with Kadarius Toney. Honestly, if I'd had a vote, I might have voted for him for MVP anyway. And if he had gotten into the end zone on that 65-yard punt return, it definitely would have been a vote for Kadarius Toney. That's just how close it was.
Third, and really quickly before you give your third, I have to say, how big is that trade for Kansas City now?
Oh my goodness, what incredible value! And when the Chiefs training staff gets a hold of Kadarius Toney in the offseason, and they get the hamstring healthy and they get the ankle healthy, and then they build up his body back up in the Chiefs way, the way that they did with Tyreek Hill, we'll see if maybe the injury situation changes for him too. So,
Yep.
for the third game ball, I've been stewing on it because there's so many different places that you could go. I think Isaiah Pacheco, obviously, Travis Kelce, obviously. I know some people might pick at me because this guy had a problem, but the game-winning kick is Harrison Butker. He puts it away. He's ice in his veins, and I don't care if that was a chip shot or not. It's a big kick when the game's on the line. And to be able to come back after the miss earlier, especially since I thought he was kicking really good in pregame, I was very surprised that he missed that kick. But we've seen it before. I mean, those things can kind of spiral. He didn't let that. I mean, it was good on all of his extra points in the game, which we know has been a challenge for him. And then to hit the game winner, good for Harrison. For what has been a nightmare of a season for that guy, to see him get the game-winning kick at the end, I'll give him a game ball for that.
Well, and how crazy is it the special teams won the game for Kansas City last night? And I don't take that lightly by saying it.
They're not rookies anymore, remember?
And really quick on the Harrison Butker kick to win the game, he kicked it over the netting. He's not that far out, and that's a short kick, and I get it. But my point is, he specifically got that ball up as high as he possibly could, as quickly as he possibly could, so they had no chance of blocking that kick. Phenomenal job by him, kicked it straight down the middle, and that's exactly what you expect from him.
Who did you guys take for your game balls?
Should have been here.
No, I had to go back and listen.
No, we actually covered most of those bases. I think we nominated Chris Jones as well, and Juju Smith-Schuster for filling in when they tried to take Travis away.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I had Kadarius Toney, and I had Andrew Wiley.
Good. There you go. Good for you, Chris. I like that for the Andrew Wiley. Good for the big guy.
Hey, he played a phenomenal role shutting down Hassan Reddick. And I said this last night, and I'll say it again. I'm not going to say it was all Andrew Wiley. I know it wasn't. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. The Chiefs helped him. The Chiefs chipped in with the tight end. They got him with the running back several times. They got him, I think, with the wide receiver on a couple of snaps, just a little bit of getting him into the set to where Wiley could handle him. But Wiley didn't let him get anywhere after he got his hands on him. And he put him in the ground multiple times during that game. That was so huge for that team.
Andrew Wiley was one of many guys last night that made some money because he's going to be a free agent this offseason. He's going to get money. I don't know if it's going to be in Kansas City or not, but that young man is going to get the bag.
Matt transitions it perfectly. And if you want to see more from the offensive line group in particular, go to Chiefs Digest on YouTube and check that out now. You'll get some more updates at chiefsdigest.com eventually. But for right now, check out the YouTube channel. We're going to be back tomorrow because Andrew's just one person about the future of this team that we need to discuss. We're going to take a snapshot. The next season starts on Thursday. We're not quite there yet, but we got to take a look.
And I just have to say really quick, because I know we didn't talk about it last night, congratulations to McCole Hardman, new father. Congratulations to Nick Allegretti, new father of two twins, right? For Allegretti?
Twin girls. Yep. Born a little premature, but both are doing great.
Yeah, and they were both born Super Bowl Sunday, I believe, right?
Yeah, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So Nick had a long, long day.
Nick, give me a shout. I'll tell you all about twin girls. Woo, good Lord. All right, folks. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you to Matt, who's still traveling. We'll have more from Matt tomorrow. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell. Check out Chiefs Digest on everywhere, really, but YouTube right now. Matt's Twitter feed. You want to check that out at Matt Derrick. Thank you, guys. Have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow.